Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Morning,
Yes, sir.
morning, everyone. Any questions from what we discussed yesterday?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, tell me.
So my question is that what if regulating authorities allow investment bank to take deposits from general public? In that way, their cost of procuring funds would go down, and they would move to a safer sources of earning income.
So in India, I don't think regulator will allow that because the way the Indian regulators have thought through their thought process, they want to keep it different. So they don't want to mix up the sources of funds for commercial bank and for investment. Like they want to keep it different. So I don't think in near future or even in long run. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Am I audible now?
Yes, now you are.
So yeah, so what I was telling, the regulator will not remove that distinction. So they will keep it different for commercial bank investment. I don't think in uh, even in the long run they have any thought process to do that.
Okay.
Any other question?
But sir, if they want, they can do this. I mean, by doing this, uh, the risk that was involved earlier that goes down. The distinction between commercial bank and investment bank still remains there.
No, I
So
didn't
if they want,
understand this question.
I'm continuing the previous question only.
Yeah.
Yeah. If in future, I mean, is there? I mean, you said that they didn't thought it through that it might be possible or not.
No,
But
I didn't say that. I didn't say they didn't thought through. I said they've thought through, and in the way I have understood when I've interacted with them is that their thought process is that they don't want to do that.
okay, okay, no problem.
Because with that with that virtue, if so suppose if they do that, I think that probably would dissolve and dilute the strength of our financial system.
How would that happen?
So I told you yesterday, correct? So if so suppose if the regulator allows deposits to be accepted by the investment bank, then they would not be able to invest money into risky asset classes. And then they also have to do very similar risk appetite investment portfolios, or they have to create those similar investment portfolio which commercial bank is doing. So
Oh, okay.
investment bank today is able to invest into higher risky asset classes because their source of funds are not driven by public deposits.
Okay.
So if their source of funds also gets driven by a public deposits, then the end use of those funds will become very similar to the end use of commercial banks, end use of funds for the commercial banks.
Yeah, but I mean, every organization has to raise equity as well to strike the balance between the obligation and the cost of capital.
But the equity
So I
is
guess,
different, correct? So when you're raising an equity, the equity is anyways is a risky source of funds. It has nothing to do with investment bank or a commercial bank. So today, if you go and invest into equity of Reliance shares, you're pretty much convinced that this can become zero also. You're not investing into Reliance of equity shares, considering it's a safe, so it's a safe investment zone.
yes.
But when you go to a bank and put an FD, you consider that as a safe zone of funds. That's the difference.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Anybody else? Any other question? Okay. Now, yesterday we discussed what is commercial bank and investment bank. So let's understand the different types of activities or the services or the products that each of these offer in the markets. So we start with the commercial bank. So first, corporate bank and the retail bank. What do you mean by corporate bank and retail bank? Yeah, anybody? What do you mean by corporate bank and retail bank?
Hello, Nishant. Parul this side. Corporate banks are those who deal with the corporate clients, the companies, and retail banks deal with the individual clients.
So yesterday we discussed investment bank. We discussed commercial bank. Today we're discussing corporate bank. And then we have retail bank. Yeah, so are these four different? So what I'm trying to understand how this corporate bank is different from commercial bank and how this retail bank is different from commercial bank. Similarly, how this corporate bank is different from investment bank and how this retail bank is different from investment bank. That's what I'm trying to understand. So for example, investment bank also deals with the corporates, correct? So does that mean investment bank also becomes a corporate bank? Arun? Arun, you there?
Yes, Nishant.
Now you understand my question?
They are differentiated on the basis of the activities they are performing, the services they are providing to the customers.
What does that mean? Give me an example.
Like an investment bank takes care of the portfolio management for the clients.
Okay, so what does that mean? So if investment bank takes care of the portfolio investment, does that mean it's a corporate bank? It's not a corporate bank.
It can be a subset of corporate bank.
It can be a subset of the corporate bank. Okay. Okay. So I'm still not clear in terms of difference. If you understand my question, can you help me get answers to this? So what is a subset of which one? So you're saying investment bank is a subset of the corporate bank. So you're saying corporate bank is a bigger umbrella. In this, you will have investment bank and you have something else. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. And what is the something else?
Providing other services
To
their clients, to the corporate clients.
the corporate clients. So फिर corporate तो फिर वो investment banking का part नहीं है क्या?
Actually, investment banking is a broad concept, and
So investment banking is a bigger concept or corporate banking is a bigger concept?
Corporate banking.
Okay. So you want to still stay with this concept, right? The corporate banking is a bigger concept.
I believe, as per my knowledge as of now.
Anybody else?
Morning. The basic difference between what you are iterating about the investment bank and corporate bank. Investment bank don't pour the money owned by them. Means they channelize the money from one fund, surplus fund, to a required fund. Well, whereas the
Deepak, that's a
corporate
difference.
bank,
That's a difference between investment bank and a commercial bank. That's what we discussed yesterday.
No, no.
So yesterday we discussed these two, where we agreed that difference between investment bank and commercial bank is a commercial bank brings the money on their balance sheet through accepting deposits, and from their own balance sheet they start lending out, whereas the investment bank does not accept deposits and bring money on their balance sheet. They generally route the money directly from the investor balance sheet to the borrower or to the fund raising company balance sheet. Correct?
so commercial bank is a part of corporate bank is a subset of to the commercial bank, and yesterday we have already give us the information about this investment banking versus commercial banking. So commercial banking is corporate bank. You can say that it's a subset of both these. Corporate bank and retail bank are a subset of this commercial banking.
They're a subset of these two. Okay. Okay. So an investment bank doesn't have a corporate bank and retail bank.
To my knowledge, means it should not be.
It should not be. Thank you. So yes, the first this first part is right. In terms of corporate banking and retail banking are not two different, are not the legal entities. They are sub teams within a commercial bank. So for example, ICICI Bank. Yesterday, I think we took an example of ICICI Bank. So ICICI Bank is a commercial bank. Within ICICI Bank, you will have two teams or two departments to put in simple terms. One team or one department would be a corporate banking team, and then another team would be a retail banking team. And the target customers for each of these teams are different. So corporate banking team, the customers would be corporates. So for example, if Infosys goes to ICICI and say they have these banking needs, so when ICICI Bank is helping Infosys as a client in meeting their banking requirements, so that falls under corporate banking or wholesale banking भी बोला जाता है उसको traditional banking terminology में. Vis-a-vis, if you and me go to ICICI Bank and say I have some banking need, open my account or whatever, and if they start helping me or servicing my banking needs, because we are individuals, we're not corporates, so we will be serviced by their retail banking team, not by the corporate banking team. So these are not corporate banking. The point number 3 and the point number 4 are not the entities, different entities. They are sub teams within commercial banks. Any doubt till this point?
Sure.
Any doubt in this point? So for example, if Mukesh Ambani goes and says he wants to open his personal account, so he would be dealt by a retail banking team. Whereas if Mukesh Ambani goes and says that he wants to open account or he has some banking needs for his own company Reliance, then that would be taken care by the corporate banking team. Guys, is this clear?
Yes.
Now let's come to the investment bank. Same logic applies to investment bank. Again, investment bank theoretically can have two departments. One is a commercial corporate banking and another is a retail banking. But the problem is, so this is theoretical version. Now, the practical version is, because we deal into very big ticket size transaction, generally we don't deal with too much of these kind of transactions. I'm saying generally, it's not, there's no rule which I can't deal with. So that's the reason, because I will not be dealing with too many such transactions which are driven by more of a retail customers. Hence, I don't need to create this separate team called retail banking. I would have one team which is investment banking, which would cater my 99% of the clients would be on the corporate banking side. But theoretically, I can have these two teams, but practically, I don't need the second team because I don't have much business or much volumes in that second segment. So just to conclude, corporate banking and retail banking are two sub teams of the commercial banking entity. Any questions, doubt in this? Any questions in this? Okay. So in case no, we move back to this. So that's the reason these two teams, 1 and 2, these are nothing but these are the part of commercial banking. What we're discussing now, what we'll discuss now. So the first from the extreme right, bottom right is the retail lending and the services. So when a retail banking team gives the loans to the individuals, so for example, we go and take home loan, we take a car loan, stuff like this, those will fall into retail lending services, where the bank is doing lending services to the retail customers. Any question on this? Second is your private banking. So within individuals, you might have HNIs. HNIs is your high net worth individuals. These are those individuals which are, from a legal status perspective, they're individuals. Like it could be Mr. Bachchan, it could be Virat Kohli, some people like this, who are individuals who are not corporates, but by the virtue of of the role or what they're doing, they or because of their hereditary wealth, there's a possibility they might have a higher amount of money to play with or to probably deploy. So hence, they're still individuals, but they are individuals a little different from us. Us in the sense, probably will have small amount of money to invest and probably to deploy. But these people, in spite of the fact they are individual, they're not corporate, but they still will have higher money to deploy. Hence, they are given a special treatment on the way they have been managed are a little different, and hence they call for them it's called as private banking. So they are given more customized and much more bespoke services because they are dealing into large ticket size transactions, and that's called as private banking. Some of the banks these are called as HNI, and some of the banks it's called as super premium customers or so on. So there could be different fancy names that could be attached to this, but in principle, what we're trying to do in retail, you have two subparts. One is actual retail, where those are individuals, and second is the HNI, which are high net worth individuals, which can be called as private banking as well. Any doubt in first two? This is first. This is second. Anji, any question in first two? Like, if not, then we move to corporate banking. I already explained what do you mean corporate banking. Corporate banking is where your customers are corporates. Under that, your point number 3 is financing. So financing simply means you are giving, you're providing financing solutions to the corporates. You're giving funds to them, which could be in terms of loans as well. So the point 4 and point 3 is pretty similar. The small difference could be under point 4. It says corporate loans, which is again corporate financing, and then SME lending. SME is small and medium enterprises. Within corporates as well, you might have 2-3 categories of the corporates. One is the small corporates, and then you have big corporates. So you're just trying to bifurcate by saying that corporates within corporate banking, you have some sub team which is called as SME team. The SME team is responsible for handling or meeting the requirements for a small corporates. Any doubt in first 4 points? Any doubt in first 4 points? Hello, am I audible? Hello.
Yes, sir. No problem.
Okay. Then point 5 is your trade finance. So trade finance is where you're helping the corporates in financing their trades. I think I discussed this in this batch earlier, the letter of credit. Did we discuss letter of credit in this batch earlier?
No, sir. Letter of credit we didn't discuss.
No,
So
sir.
trade finance. So trade finance is when, so suppose if the corporate is doing import and export, doing an import and export, they might need some different source of funding. They might need advances. They might need credit facilities. They might need guarantees, which is in different parlance is also called as letter of credit. So those are nothing but the examples of trade finance. So let me give an example to this. So for example, if you're an importer, you're importing goods from US. So your concern is sorry, not your concern, the US manufacturer, which is a seller, the seller is based out of US. The concern for that US seller is that if he or she sends the goods or delivers the goods to Indian ports, then you do not make the payment, then usko loss ho jayega because you run away with the goods. Whereas the Indian importer will have a concern that if Indian importer makes an advance payment and you make the payment, then at the once the payment is being done, the seller, which is based out of US, might not deliver the goods. So that's a problem because you're sitting in two geographies and there are two different laws. You don't want to take the risk of getting onto those legal hassles. So that's why to avoid this, you go through some banking documentation, which is called a letter of credit, where it's nothing one bank issues a guarantee on behalf of the other bank, saying that don't worry, once you deliver the goods, the payment would be released. If the payment is not done by the customer, the bank promises to pay the required amount. So that gives a comfort to both the parties that okay, there's a third party or a bank which they can rely on. The bank is involved and the bank is promising to honor the commitment. So that those kind of transactions are called a trade finance. Any doubt in first 5 points?
No, sir.
6, treasury. Now, treasury, the role of the treasury team is primarily divided into two categories. One, they are responsible for first managing the surplus funds, and second, they are responsible for managing the shortage of the funds. So they are responsible for managing the surplus. What does that mean? So suppose the company needs 10 crores, but let's assume for next 5 days, the company is sitting on the cash of, let's assume, 20 crores. You have a surplus of 10 crores. What should you do for that 10 crores for next 5 years? You can do nothing and let the 10 crores stay sitting in your bank account. That's one option. But for next 5 days, you have surplus cash. You want to make return out of this? If yes, that's the treasury team who will manage the surplus. Similarly, if there's a shortage, you need 10 crore, but you only have let's say 6 crore, you're short of 4 crores for next 2 days. Then how should that be managed? Again, the treasury team comes in. So treasury team takes care of both the shortages and surplus of the funds. Any doubt?
No, sir.
So this completes first six. First six falls into the corporate bank, into commercial banking, divided into the corporate bank and the retail bank. I'll pause here for 30 seconds, just ensure you absorb this right before we move to investment bank. So any questions on this? Are we good with first 6 points?
Treasury must be there in retail and investment also, because there can also be a surplus or shortage of funds.
Uh, it theoretically it is possible in retail, but trying to understand all these are commercial aspects. So retail में अगर shortage होगी या surplus होगा, so those are very small in nature. So for example जैसे so उसके लिए मुझे अलग से एक टीम बनाने की जरूरत नहीं है which will try and manage funds for them. Those can be handled by the same team. And anyways, for the private banking, I have a special team which will take care of their customized requirement. But this scenario of shortage and surplus will be more often and recurring for the corporates, and not only in terms of the occurrence, but in terms of the magnitude of that impact, which means the difference, the amount of the surplus and the shortage will be much bigger in the corporate. That's why I need much more specialized team to cater those requirements. So for example, you and me, so there's a possibility in a particular month my salary is 100 rupees and my expenses as for that month comes out to be 70 rupees. So I have a surplus of 30 rupees. Now, is that big enough that I go to the bank and say, okay, I have a surplus. I need somebody to manage this fund. That's not justified, because the charge that the bank will charge probably will more than 30 rupees. It's not worth of going to the bank and asking for the services. But if this 30 is 30 crores, then of course I don't mind going to a bank and saying, can you help me to manage these 30 crores? And I don't mind up paying in 50,000-60,000 rupees to you if you help me with and make my returns more than 56,000 rupees.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So that's the reason theoretically you can have treasury team under retail banking. There's no restriction from a law perspective, but practically we don't see a commercial feasibility to have the team there. Anything else for first 6 points? Okay. Then point number 7 is equity market. I think we have discussed this yesterday. So we discussed equity market, discussed about IPO concepts yesterday. So equity market where the shares are being bought and sold. Of course, as we discussed yesterday, it's an investment bank, not the corporate bank, not the commercial bank, or not the corporate bank, which helps the customers. The investment bank helps the customer in issuing the shares. That's why equity markets falls in the category of investment bank. The next is a research. This is very extensive business for us, research segment. So what do you mean research? For example, I have one global investor. So when I say global investor, what does this mean? It means the investor from a risk appetite perspective, plus from a law perspective, is allowed to invest into different countries. So if let's assume if a global investor comes to me and say, I have $10 million, where should I invest? Please advise me. If I have to advise that customer where should invest, I need to do a research. So first I will do a research, because a global investor, I need to research at an economic level. So that's called as economic research. I will study India and some of the other emerging or growth potential economies, and I will select, okay, India is one of the economies where we have selected based on our research. And he will say, okay, in India, where should I invest? Then I have to need to select some top performing or top growth potential sectors or industries. Okay, under then research, I'm saying, okay, I will invest into, let's assume, banking, pharma, and suppose auto sectors. Suppose I've selected these three. Then the question is, okay, but which stock in these? And then the level 3 comes in. Level 3 means after just select the sectors or the industry that you have shortlisted. Then you start doing further research into those sectors, and finally you're selecting a particular stocks. Okay, yes, auto. Under auto, let's go to Maruti Suzuki. Yes, pharma, and the pharma goes with, let's assume, Ranbaxy and so on. So you're trying to shortlist, and then finally you advise the client, okay, you should invest into these stocks into these countries, and that's what the research is, because we've done through an extensive research, and basis that we are giving those recommendations to the client. So that's called as research. This in this example, this is called an equity research because you're doing a research on the equity segments. It could be research on the credit side or fixed income side as well, which is more of a credit research or fixed income research. Similarly, we do a lot of stuff on the derivative side as well, so that becomes derivative research. We do a lot of stuff on M&A research as well. So, to keep it simple, the research means you're trying to gather more information and more insights to this. Depending upon आप किसके लिए research कर रहे हो, the type of research will the name of the research will change. Any doubt in first eight? Any doubt in first eight? This is a very important slide because this sets the entire foundation for you to understand, okay, what is commercial bank, what is investment bank, then how commercial bank is bifurcated into corporate bank and retail bank. Okay, then the next layer is, okay, what does corporate bank do, what does a retail bank do, and what are the different activities which is done by investment bank. That's why yesterday's discussion and today's discussion put together should lay the foundation for someone. Any questions, doubt in this? Last time, any questions in first eight? Okay. Ninth is an M&A. Again, this is one of high aggressive business for us. So M&A means suppose one of client comes to us and say that I want to acquire some other company. So suppose client X comes and say I want to acquire company Y. Can you help me? So we help the client from step one to last step in terms of doing this entire transaction and getting this completed. So those are called as M&A services. So it's called for merger and acquisition. What do you mean by merger? What do I mean by acquisition is what we'll discuss probably next weekend. If not next weekend, I mean next week we can definitely for sure. I think it aa jayega. So this is one of the topics which is lined up in this module as well. But just to keep it simple as of now, so M&A means if a client wants to do anything in the merger and acquisition space, then we step in and start providing those services to the client. Of course, this can be done by investment bank, not by commercial bank. Any questions? Doubt in point 9? Okay. Then your point 10, just sales and trading. So let me bifurcate this into two. So sales. So let's first talk about sales. So look at the point number 8. In the point in number 8, you've done the research. So once you've done the research, suppose the client has not approached you, but you've done your research that for a particular client, this investment should be a good option. And then you proactively reach out to the client and try and pitch that idea, try and sell that idea to the client. And the client likes your idea and says, okay, I like this analysis, I like this research, and of course I will use your recommendation and do what you're recommending to me. Then that is nothing but sales, because you're trying to sell that idea to the client. That's called a sales business. When you're trying to sell your idea to the client and the client takes that idea, that's called a sales business. Any questions in this sales?
No, sir.
Okay. The next is the trading.
Can you please explain is there any correlation between 7, 8, 9, 10, 7 to 10, or they are being dealt separately?
So there is correlation, there is overlapping, there is dependency, correct? So the example that I gave you for the sales, where you are trying to give some idea or recommendation to the client, that's not possible without the research, correct? So that example, we say the 8 and 10 gets interlinked. Now, let's take that forward. If your idea is to, okay, that client should buy some stock in equity market, so then in that example, the point 8 and 7 gets linked to the point 10. Case 2, if your idea or your recommendation to the client is that you should acquire some other company, then the 8, 9, 10 get linked together. So yes, 7, 8, 9, 10 may be linked, may be dependent, may have overlaps, may have correlations as well. This will vary from the transaction to transaction. The nature of the transaction might vary. Deepak,
Okay.
any other questions?
No, not now.
Anybody else? Any other question? Then you have trading. Now, what do you mean by trading? So, for example, the investment bank has done research, and as per their research, let's assume Reliance, they should buy the Reliance Industries stock. And the one way to do this is they go to the client and they try and convince the client that, okay, please invest into Reliance Industries. That's one way. That's called a sales business. Case 2, they rather than going to the client, they uses their own funds. So own funds, when we are referring to the investment bank, the investment bank uses their own funds and buys the Reliance stock in their own name. Own name means in the name of the investment banking entity. That is called as trading, which in a real market scenario, we call this a proprietary trading or prop trade bolte हैं इसको. So where rather than giving recommendation to the client, you yourself start investing into those securities, start trading into those securities. So that's called as proprietary trading business. Is that clear to you? So any questions in first 10? I'm done with the first semicircle on this slide, the outer semicircle on this slide. Let me know in case you have doubts.
How these investment banks are getting funds to buy this to do this trading? Is it again they will go to the corporate banks, or, like if you are giving an example of ICICI? Can the corporate bank of ICICI can do the can give the loans to investment bank, means ICICI Securities?
So no questions on the first time? Okay.
And I put my question. I think it was not audible to you. I don't know.
Yeah. I think some network problem. Go ahead.
Actually, you're told that this trading activities, investment banks can buy from their own funds. What is the source of funds the investment banks have, and can the same corporate bank with this legal entity like ICICI Bank can provide a loan to ICICI Securities
So let me answer
to
the
do that,
second question.
to do this
Yeah.
trading?
Yeah. So let me answer the second question first. The answer is no. A commercial bank cannot give loans to the investment bank unless it's being approved or supported by the regulator. Because if you allow that to happen, then what RBI wants to restrict will get diluted. So remember yesterday what we discussed is this. So if you go back to this, what we were discussing yesterday is that you have public on this side, and public is investing those into FDs into commercial bank, and then ICICI Bank gives loans to someone, correct? And we are saying that this money is not being rooted here, because they will go and take those risks, correct, Deepak? This is what we discussed yesterday.
Yes,
We
yes,
said
that's okay. But
equities,
what is the source of fund?
I'm coming to it.
Okay, okay.
So we said that the ICICI Securities allowed to invest, is allowed to raise money through equity, but they're not allowed to raise this from this. So your question is now, let me use a different marker to plot this. So now your second question is this: if public gives money to ICICI Bank, can ICICI Bank now go and give loan to ICICI Securities? Correct? That's your second question, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So the answer is no, and no is you can see on the screen, because if this happens, then the objective of a regulator to disallow this will get defeated, correct? You are able to circumvent this scenario by creating this structure.
Correct.
The end result,
as soon as
the end requirement
once upon a time, this ICICI Securities existence में आया होगा, and at that point of time, will they raise the funds through equity?
yes, equity में
from
कोई
the
problem
market.
नहीं. So that's what I'm saying. So this equity is not a problem. Please try and understand. Equity is not a problem, because when ICICI Securities would have come into existence, or still if they want to expand now, raising funds from equity is not a problem, because somebody who's putting money into equity is anyways have decided to take that risk. The problem is from the deposit side. So for example, when ICICI Bank would have started, they would have been allowed two sources of the funds. One is equity and second is FD, correct? They have allowed these two sources of the funds to start the business. Investment bank is allowed equity, but they're not allowed this source of funds. ये नहीं allowed FD के लिए. डायरेक्टली भी अलाउड नहीं है और इनडायरेक्टली भी अलाउड नहीं. सो आपने जो क्वेश्चन पूछा वो इनडायरेक्ट था कि पब्लिक ने आईसीआईसीआई बैंक को दिया और आईसीआईसीआई बैंक ने उठा के आईसीआईसीआई सिक्योरिटीज को दे दिया. ये इनडायरेक्ट सोर्सेज, इनडायरेक्ट चैनलाइजेशन हुआ, ये भी अलाउड नहीं. बिकॉज एंड रिजल्ट क्या होगा? लेट्स टेक दिस, अगर पब्लिक ने आईसीआईसीआई बैंक को दिया, आईसीआईसीआई बैंक ने आईसीआईसीआई सिक्योरिटीज को दिया, आईसीआईसीआई सिक्योरिटी ने जाकर रिस्क में डाल दिया और ये डूब गया, तो आईसीआईसीआई सिक्योरिटी विल गो डाउन. ICICI Securities will not be able to repay to ICICI Bank, and ICICI Bank will tell this public, oh, I don't have the money. At the end, जो regulator नहीं चाहता था वो हो जाएगा ना. Deepak, is your second question answered before I go to the first question?
Yes. My point is that because if a new investment bank wants to be in the market, then means it is clear that they will, the only source of fund raising is through equity, and that equity funds they can invest in trading and all activities.
Yes. Which is your first question? From where will they get the fund? The answer is they have to bring the money from equity, or what I said yesterday, they can raise money from the private placements. I'm not sure how much you're aware because I've not introduced the concept of private placement. That's the reason yesterday also I was trying to hold on the bond discussion. And today also I've not yet introduced the concept of private placement. So they can raise money from equity, or the other source of the channel which is available is private placement. In that, the bond is one of those options which is available, and then in private placement the equity is also one of the options, which has become private equity. So what is not possible for ICICI Securities to go out and raise fixed deposits or bonds from the public, but they can go out and raise bonds from selected set of investment through a private placement mode, जो मैं भी सिखाऊंगा, समझाऊंगा.
Okay.
And your first question, just to clarify that also, कि आपने पूछा first question में कि what is the source for ICICI Securities अगर उसको trading करना है या prop trade करना है. So as we just discussed, that the primary source will be this equity. Deepak, is your both question now answered?
Yes.
Any other question from anybody else? Yes, this is important. The first 10 points, these are important. So last time, any questions on the first semicircle on this slide? Okay. Then let's start with the inner semicircle. So let's start from the right side. So you have advisory companies. So advisory company means where you're providing advice to the customer, you're providing consultancy business. So as I told you, the this research, when you do a research, उस रिसर्च के बाद क्या करते हो? उस रिसर्च के बाद क्लाइंट को एडवाइस ही करते हो ना, ऐसा करो वैसा करो. So those are advisory business. Those are nothing but in a real market scenario we call as a consulting segment of our revenue. So we call it a consulting business where you're trying to, if the client comes to you for some consultancy and you're trying to help the client from a strategy perspective, from a modeling perspective, from a valuation perspective, a hell lot of stuff there. So that's I call as advisory companies. कोई doubt इसमें? ठीक है. So in case no, so then next is your credit research. ये मैंने बता दिया आपको. I've explained you what is research. Now when you do the research for equity market, that's called as equity research. When you do research for credit instruments, which is nothing but your kind of fixed income instruments, debts and bonds, then this becomes called a credit research. You might do it for derivatives, that's called a derivative research. You might do it for M&A, that becomes an M&A research, and so on. Any question in research? Okay, so next is boutique M&A. Boutique M&A is nothing but very similar to what we discussed M&A. So the small difference could be in the size of the transaction. There are some boutique investment banks who are relatively smaller in size and they don't do the entire ambit of investment banking services. They specialize into one or two segments of the investment bank. Those are called as boutique IB firms. Similarly, boutique M&A firms, boutique M&A transactions are relatively small M&A transactions and primarily driven by boutique investment banks, which primarily do not deal in all the activities of investment bank, but primarily deal into one or two activities of the investment bank, which could be an M&A as well. Any questions? Okay. We're done with we're done with boutique M&A, we're done with credit research, we're done with advisory. So let's take next is a private equity. So we discussed yesterday that these investment bank help companies to raise money. So for example, if you have a company, suppose ABC Limited, and ABC Limited has two sources of raising fund. One is equity and one is debt. And then this equity also could be raised from two further sources. One is public equity. Second is private. Now, what does this mean? When you make offer to the public at large to buy the shares of your company, and this happens through listing. It happens through listing. Listing means registering your company on a stock exchange, because the entire public will be dealing into the buy and sell of the shares. That's why this is called as public equity. And the ways to do this is IPO and FPO. Any doubt so far before I go to private equity? Any questions in this? The next is a private equity. Private equity means you do not offer shares to the public. You offer shares only to selected set of investors, that too privately. Which means if I say, okay, I will offer my shares to A and B, which means only A and B can buy those shares of the company. Deepak or somebody else might not be able to buy the shares of my company. That's what it means, because I am deciding who wants to, who can be the investor, and I'm privately approaching them, which means nobody else can step in and say I want to invest. But when I look for a public offer, I do not reach out to individuals separately. I make an announcement in the public domain or into the public media saying that this is what I want to sell. Whoever is interested, come. So that's the difference in public equity and private equity. Any doubt in this private equity? This private equity is being lined up later as well, and in a much more depth. But as of now, what I want to focus is this probably the brief overview in terms of what private equity is. Again, in this, as an investment bank, we help the client. So we help the client in going this side as well, which is public equity, and we also help the client in going this side as well. And both is a part of what? Both is a part of which segment? Is a part of equity market, because technically you are dealing with equity, correct? Be it a private or public. So as Deepak was asking, are these overlappings or interlinked? Yes, these tabs in this entire slide are interlinked and overlapping with each other. Any questions so far? So which means you're done with the private equity as well. So only two left on the slide. So only two left, which is your AMC and brokerage house. So I'm giving you 30 seconds again. Any doubt, any questions apart from these two? No?
Yeah, this private equity and acquisition are two different aspects.
Private equity and
That's acquisition, acquiring the stakes in the particular company,
hmm.
are two different aspects, or
It could be linked, it could be same also. So for example, if I'm acquiring a stake in the company, I might choose to go through private equity mode as well. Then it's the same transaction, but I'm using two structures to conclude the transaction. Case two, for acquiring the stake in a company, I might not go to private equity and buy those shares into the secondary market. So then I'm buying the stake in the company, but not through private equity, but through the secondary market. So both combinations are possible. Deepak, does this answer your question?
yes, my question means I can what after your elaboration, the private equity जो है, that will a
Mhm.
willingness of a company to call somebody that please take the shares and give the
Mhm.
money,
Mhm.
and acquisition is the other way around.
No, so uh, for if a company is if the company is inviting someone and saying that okay, buy my stake, let's assume 5%. So that's not an acquisition, correct? For an acquisition to happen, you need to have the more than 50% stake in the company. Then only it will qualify as an acquisition. So if the companies call somebody, which doesn't happen in the practical world, but let's take theoretical for the sake of discussion. Suppose if you're running a company and you call someone and say, okay, buy 60% stake in my company, and let's say you're calling someone from a private equity mode, then of course, along with the private equity, this company will get acquired by somebody else, because the moment somebody else acquires 60% stake in the company, he will become the chairman, the board of the company, and he will remove you or whoever is the earlier CEO or into the member of the board. But if you invite someone and say, okay, buy 10%, not more than that, which means if you still continue to hold the majority of the stake and you're still the owner of the company, or you are still the primary decision maker in the company. Does this address your question now?
Yes, I can say that the acquisition means private equity beyond 50% is a sort of acquisition, and acquisition means
Could result in
private.
acquisition and could result in merger also, correct?
Okay, okay.
So for example, if you want to work with me and I want to work with you, we're both friendly to each other, and you decide, okay, Deepak, I will work with you if you allow me to invest 50%. Says, okay, Nishan, no worries, 50% invest kar lo. So now still it is private equity, but it's not an acquisition, because it's not. We're coming together. We are friendly in nature, correct? It's what happened with Maruti Suzuki. So Maruti Suzuki was a private equity investment, but still resulted in a merger. Hero Honda, now it's been demerged, but earlier it still was private equity, but still was a merger, not acquisition. Vodafone, this Vodafone and Idea, this is again kind of a merger, correct? Still is a private equity concept. So private equity, not if a private equity investor is required invest more than 50% or 50%, will that always result in acquisition? The answer is no. It might result in merger also, or a JV also, joint venture as well. That depends on the kind of structures. ये कराऊंगा मैं भी आपको, merger क्या होता है, acquisition क्या होता है, JV क्या होता है, SPV क्या होता है, इसमें हम करेंगे. So जैसे जैसे वो आगे आपको समझ आना शुरू होगा, then you will understand क्या differences होते हैं. मैंने अभी merger क्या होता है, acquisition क्या होता है बताया नहीं, because what we're trying to do on this slide is just trying to get an overview of what commercial bank all can do and what investment bank all can do. Once we say yes to this and we move on, then we start getting into depth of each of these.
Okay, that's okay. But my question is generated just that I have a query that acquisition,
Yeah,
because you
go
have
ahead.
mentioned in private equity, and I was but confused that either it is a part, now it is clear.
No issues, that's fair. So, but is that query addressed, and you're not sounding
Yes, yes, yes,
too confident,
yes,
so
yes.
that's why I'm a little
No, no,
concerned.
it's addressed later in the chapters. You are told that we will address in depth on these topics.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other question on this slide? So we're still apart from AMC and brokerage house. Any other questions? Okay. Now, brokerage house. Suppose if you want to deal in this secondary market, or you want to buy the shares on stock market. Now, in India, you're not allowed to buy and sell shares or any other securities directly on stock exchange. You need to go through an intermediary called as broker. So if you want to buy the shares on NSE, which is one of the stock exchanges in India, or else in BSE, which is another second stock exchange, I can't go directly to NSE and BSE platform and say, okay, I want to do this. I need to go through the intermediary like ICICI Direct, Sher Khan, and so on. These are some of the broking firms, and मुझे इनके through जाना पड़ेगा. And when I will go through them, these are called as broking firms or broking houses. And if they will charge a brokerage from me, because they are helping me to route my transaction through them to the stock exchange. These are called as broking firms or brokerage houses. Any doubt on this? Okay. Next is the AMC. AMC is asset management company. So let's first understand what is mutual fund. Mutual fund is suppose I have 100 rupees, Deepak has 100 rupees, Sahil has 100 rupees, Parul has 100 rupees, and so on. So each of us has 100 rupees, which is small savings, and we want to buy, we want to invest into security or into an asset class where the minimum ticket size transaction is 500 rupees. So we individually will not be able to invest because we only have 100 rupees at individual level. But if we come together and create a corpus of each individual contributing 100 rupees, and let's assume there are 10 individuals, so 100 each may result in 1,000 rupees. So we pool our funds individually into this, and all these funds are together created, are combined together, and we have now 1,000 rupees. That's called as corpus. And over there, we appoint someone. Okay, we have individually contributed 100 rupees, and which is created this corpus of 1,000, and now we appoint someone, and we'll tell that person that you now decide where you should invest. So that's called as fund manager. The fund manager then decides and takes those calls and start investing this 1,000 rupees further. एंड जो रिटर्न आएगा वो इन्वेस्टमेंट से फंड मैनेजर अपनी फीस कमीशन जो भी उसकी सैलरी है उस चार्जेस है वो डिडक्ट करके जो भी बचेगा वो हम लोगों में डिस्ट्रीब्यूट कर देगा प्रोपोर्शनेट बेसिस में. That is called as mutual fund. Any doubt in this point? Okay. So, in case no questions, so guys, I think I've said this earlier also. So, unless you're asking question and you remain silent, I have no choice but to assume that there are no further questions. I don't get into those micro management stuff like this कि मैं individually मैं pinpoint करूँ. I'm trying to tell that please speak up in case of any doubt, anything that you're not understood or you understood but you're not convinced. Please feel free to shoot, feel free to raise, feel free to stop me, feel free to challenge in case you're not convinced. Feel free to have your opinion expressed. Feel free to add as well in case you want to add something. Suppose I've missed certain pieces, or if you believe you've read in different format, or if you've understood in different format, which were different. So feel free to, and that's what is important. If you're trying to attend these sessions more like some katha where you just log in and put your microphones on your ear and you start listening and not asking if any when you need to ask, it's not going to help you too much. So AMCs, I've explained what is mutual fund. So that fund manager, the agency which manages those funds or takes care of those assets once the investment are called as asset management companies, which sits across the fund manager. The company is responsible for managing those pool of funds, or the corporates is called as asset management company, because they appoint the fund manager and in turn manages those assets. So with this, we're done with this slide. I'm giving you last 1 minute just to see in case you have any doubt, go through this, absorb this. कुछ पूछना है तो आप पूछ सकते हो. Otherwise, we will be through with the slide.
So how is a mutual fund different from equity funds?
Okay. Give me a second, Rohit. I'm just changing my microphone. I'm just not able to hear it very clear. Just give me a minute.
Hello. 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 Hello.
Hello, am I audible now?
Hello.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Rohit, yeah, thanks. So Rohit, क्या बोला आपने? Fund.
How mutual funds are different from equity funds?
How mutual funds are different from equity funds. So equity fund is one type of the mutual fund. In mutual fund, you have different types of different schemes to invest in. So one of the schemes, Fazlul, can you go on mute, please, in case you're not asking? So one of the schemes is equity fund. So that scheme is where primarily investments are driven into the equity markets. Then you have fixed income scheme where primary investments are driven into bond market. Then you have a balanced fund. Balanced fund is 50 वहाँ पे होगा, 50 वहाँ पे होगा, and so on.
Okay, and
Yeah.
these AMCs and brokerage houses are, I mean, do they work? I mean, do they works in a similar way?
No difference है. So AMC works on a very similar concept of mutual fund. Brokerage firms act as a broker, which means आपको stock exchange पे कुछ trade करना है, तो आप directly नहीं कर सकते, आप एक broker के through trade कर रहे हो. So broker will not do stuffs of managing your portfolio. Brokerage will act as a broker. AMC will manage your portfolio investment.
Hello.
Rohit, is Rohit?
I'm okay with it.
Hello, sir.
Okay.
I'm okay with the answer.
Yeah, Fazlul.
Sir, my question is, private placement offer for sale and right issue is public equity or private equity?
Sorry, come again. Private? There's a lot of background noise from your side. Go ahead.
Sir, my question is the offer for sale, private placement, and right issue is private equity or public equity?
So, one, you mentioned offer for sale. Then second, I think you mentioned rights issue. What was the third one?
Third one is private placement, offer for sale, and right issue.
Okay. So, right issue.
First is offer for sale, second is private placement, third is offer right issue.
Okay, understood.
Are private equity or public equity?
Yeah, understood. So, right issue means, for example, if the company is coming out with the offer, if they're issuing the shares, so So Fazlur, can you go on mute? मैं आंसर करता हूँ फिर आप अनम्यूट करके दोबारा पूछना, क्योंकि बहुत सारा बैकग्राउंड नॉइज आ रहा है आपके यहाँ से. So I think it's बेटर आप म्यूट पे जाओ, फिर मैं क्वेरी आंसर करता हूँ, फिर then you can come back and unmute yourself.
All
बट
right,
जब
sir.
तक आप नहीं बोल रहे हो तब तक आप म्यूट पे रहो.
ठीक है.
So right issue means when I'm offering the shares, and I give the first preference to my existing shares. So let's put this way: if the company is coming out with the 100 shares, and company has some existing shareholders, so company offer those 100 shares first to the existing investors, saying that we are offering the shares, but first you get the right to buy the shares. Let's say out of this 100 shares, the existing shareholders buy 70 shares. तो जो 30 बच जाते हैं वो फिर पब्लिक को या नए इन्वेस्टर्स को ऑफर किए जाते हैं. That's called as right issue. Now coming to your question, Fazlur, is the right issue private equity? The answer is 99.9% it will not be private equity, because right issues are generally meant for public offers. Then private.
Sir.
Yeah.
Sir. I know that these are definitions, but can you brief explain about the difference between the private equity and public equity?
बट क्वेश्चन तो आपने कुछ और पूछा, तो मैं पहले ये फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन आपका एड्रेस करूं या वो
Yes, sir.
आपको आ गया?
Yes, I know that, sir. I know that कि ये तीनों प्राइवेट इक्विटी है या फिर पब्लिक इक्विटी है. इसका डिफरेंस ये जानता हूँ कि राइट इशू क्या है, राइट ऑफर फॉर सेल क्या है, प्राइवेट प्लेसमेंट क्या है. राइट इशू एग्जिस्टिंग शेयर होल्डर को ही
आपको ये तीनों पता है क्या है, और आपको तीनों ये भी पता है कि ये प्राइवेट इक्विटी है कि पब्लिक इक्विटी है?
नहीं, ये नहीं पता.
तो यही तो बता
ये
रहा
नहीं पता. हाँ, ये नहीं पता कि प्राइवेट इक्विटी है कि पब्लिक इक्विटी है. क्या आप मुझे हाँ
फजलुर, मैंने राइट इशू में आपको दो चीजें बताई. पहला, राइट इशू क्या होता है वो बताया आपको, जो आप कह रहे हो आपको पता है, बट ठीक है बाकी लोगों को शायद नहीं पता तो उनके बेनिफिट के लिए बताया. फिर मैंने सेकंड चीज राइट इशू में ये बताई कि राइट इशू प्राइवेट इक्विटी नहीं होता है, पब्लिक इक्विटी होता है. तो आई हैव आंसर्ड योर क्वेश्चन फॉर राइट इशू, करेक्ट?
मेरा ये क्वेश्चन है फिर से कि प्राइवेट इक्विटी और पब्लिक इक्विटी को फिर से आप ये इन दोनों के बीच क्या डिफरेंस है, ये बता सकते हो क्या एक बार फिर से?
तो आपका जो फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन है वो आंसर करूं कि नहीं करूं फजलुर? मैं डिफरेंस तो बता दूंगा. फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन आंसर करने की जरूरत है नहीं है वो बताओ मुझे, मैं वो आंसर कर रहा हूं, आप उसको छोड़ के सेकंड क्वेश्चन.
अगर मुझे ये दोनों ये डिफरेंस पता चल जाएगा तो मैं खुद ही जज कर लूंगा वो. ठीक है सर.
तो प्राइवेट इक्विटी और पब्लिक इक्विटी में क्या डिफरेंस होता है? प्राइवेट इक्विटी में the offering of the shares is being done privately to selected set of investors. So I will not be able to offer the shares to the public at large. In a public offer, I make offer to the public saying that anybody who is interested can buy the shares of my company. So I cannot reject unless the application does not fulfill the criteria. I cannot pick and choose who will be the investor, who will not be the investor. But in a private placement, I can pick and choose because I'm privately approaching certain set of investors. And it is not that if I decide, okay, so suppose if I'm making an offer, I can say, okay, Fazlur can invest, but Sahil can't invest. I can make those decisions in a private placement. But if I'm making a public offer, I cannot make those decisions. So public offer is an offering to the public. You will not be able to pick and choose. Private placement or private equity is you're offering your shares privately to selected set of investors. आपकी क्वेरी एड्रेस हुई फजलुर?
यस सर, आई अंडरस्टैंड. नो सर.
ठीक है. Anybody else, any other question on this slide?
यस सर. सर एक चीज बताओ, जैसे सपोज करो कोई कंपनी है, स्टार्टअप कंपनी है ABC, एंड उसको किसी इन्वेस्टमेंट बैंक के थ्रू किसी अदर कंपनी ने उनको मतलब सपोर्ट किया फॉर दी स्टार्टअप ऑफ बिजनेस, उनको इन्वेस्ट किया, फंड्स दिए. सो वो प्राइवेट इक्विटी में आएगा या नहीं आएगा, वो कैसे होगा?
सो एक स्टार्टअप कंपनी है, उसमें इन्वेस्टमेंट बैंक ने पैसा लगाया है या
हाँ
इन्वेस्टमेंट बैंक ने किसी और का पैसा लगवाया है, करेक्ट?
हाँ
दोनों दोनों ऑप्शन लेके चलते हैं। और
हाँ
दिस कंपनी हैज नॉट कम आउट विद एन आईपीओ एंड एफपीओ, करेक्ट?
यस।
देन इट इज अ प्राइवेट इक्विटी।
थैंक यू सर।
Anybody else, any other question? Nimesh, is it clear?
यस सर, यस सर।
केस 2 भी बता देता हूँ, आपने नहीं पूछा, केस 2 भी बता देता हूँ, ये भी सुन लो। एक मिनट रुको।
हाँ।
लेट्स अज्यूम यही स्टार्टअप कंपनी है और ये आईपीओ लेके आती है, और उस आईपीओ में इन्वेस्टमेंट बैंक ने कुछ शेयर्स खरीद लिए, तो ये प्राइवेट इक्विटी नहीं होगा, ये पब्लिक इक्विटी हो जाएगा, क्योंकि इन्वेस्टमेंट बैंक ने पब्लिक ऑफर में शेयर्स खरीदे हैं।
ओके। और एक चीज ना, प्राइवेट इक्विटी में सपोज करो सर, जैसे प्राइवेट इक्विटी में स्टार्टअप है, उसमें आईसीआईसीआई जो इन्वेस्टमेंट बैंक है उसने भी इन्वेस्ट किया है विदाउट आईपीओ, आईसीआईसीआई ने इन्वेस्ट किया है, कोई और एक कंपनी है, कोई एचएनआई है, 3 लोगों ने मिलकर उसको सपोर्ट किया, 3 लोगों ने किया, तो ये तीनों ही प्राइवेट इक्विटी अलग अलग होंगे?
यस।
थैंक यू सर।
Any other question on this slide?
Yeah, just wanted to ask if companies also go for mutual funds.
Companies. So I'm not clear your question. Could you elaborate your question? Company goes for mutual fund. What does
Like
that mean?
like corporates also invest in mutual funds through AMCs.
Yes. So they're allowed to invest. In a real world, in a practical scenario, we don't see too much of volumes there. But as a corporate, you have flexibility to invest into mutual funds as well. But रियल वर्ल्ड में जनरली इतनी वॉल्यूम नहीं होती वहां पे। रीजन बहुत सिंपल है, क्योंकि वो कॉर्पोरेट के पास इतनी एक्सपर्टीज होती है, इतनी नॉलेज होती है, इतना इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर होता है कि वो खुद ही सब कुछ इन्वेस्टमेंट मैनेज कर लेगा, तो वो एएमसी के थ्रू क्यों जाएगा। बट अगर आपको जाना है तो आप जा सकते हो।
Okay.
Sir, one more thing. A single company can have both private equity and the public equity?
Yes, it is a transition that happens generally. So for example, एक कंपनी है, वो स्टार्ट हुई and it starts with the private equity, because आपने एक बिजनेस स्टार्ट किया, आपके पास 100 रुपए थे और आपके 100 रुपए खत्म हो गए। अब आपने मुझे अप्रोच किया कि निशांत, मेरे को पैसे की जरूरत है, मेरे बिजनेस में इन्वेस्ट करना, तो मेरे को आपका आइडिया अच्छा लगा, मैंने इन्वेस्ट कर दिया। तो जब मैंने इन्वेस्टमेंट करा, वो प्राइवेट इक्विटी हो गया। निमेश, यहाँ पे क्लियर है?
यस यस।
ठीक है। हमारा बिजनेस एक्सपैंड हुआ, हमने कहा अभी और पैसे की जरूरत है। सपोज हम लोग फजलूर के पास गए, हमने कहा फजलूर, हम तो इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं, आप भी इन्वेस्ट करो ना। तो फजलूर ने भी इन्वेस्ट कर दिया, फजलूर को भी अच्छा लगा आइडिया। तो जो फजलूर ने इन्वेस्ट किया, वो पब्लिक इक्विटी है कि प्राइवेट इक्विटी है?
प्राइवेट इक्विटी।
ठीक है। अब लेट्स अज्यूम हमें और पैसे की जरूरत है, हमने डिसाइड किया कि चलो आईपीओ लेके आते हैं। ठीक है। तो अब जब हम आईपीओ लेके आ रहे हैं, जितने शेयर्स मैं पब्लिक को ऑफर करूंगा वो पब्लिक ऑफर हो जाएगा, पब्लिक इक्विटी हो जाएगा। और उससे पहले जो मैंने और फजलूर ने खरीद कर रखा है, वो तो प्राइवेट इक्विटी की फॉर्म में ही खरीदा था ना।
यस।
तो इसलिए वो ट्रांजिशन फेज में जब आता है तो वहां पे दोनों होती है, और ओवर पीरियड ऑफ टाइम धीरे धीरे फिर प्राइवेट इक्विटी खत्म होना शुरू हो जाएगा और पब्लिक इक्विटी रह जाएगा।
ओके। तो सर वन मोर थिंग, सपोज करो एक ही टाइम पे, जैसा भी जो आपने एग्जांपल दिया, उसमें फॉर अ सर्टेन पीरियड हमारे पास प्राइवेट इक्विटी भी है, पब्लिक इक्विटी भी है, दोनों ही है। सो अगर इस केस में अगर हमें कुछ प्रॉफिट डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करना है या कुछ ही, तो पहला प्रायोरिटी किसको जाएगा सर?
कोई सेम प्रायोरिटी, इट इज नथिंग टू डू विद, क्योंकि दोनों इक्विटी शेयर होल्डर्स है ना। वो इक्विटी शेयर होल्डर्स प्राइवेट से आया पब्लिक से आया, दैट डजंट डिसाइड द प्रायोरिटी, बोथ विल बी ट्रीटेड इक्वली। सो लेट्स अज्यूम दीपक ने पब्लिक ऑफर में शेयर्स खरीदे, और मैंने और फजलूर ने प्राइवेट इक्विटी में खरीदे थे। अब कंपनी को 100 रुपए का प्रॉफिट हुआ, तो ऐसा नहीं कर सकते कि मेरे को दे देंगे और दीपक को नहीं देंगे, सबको मिलेगा, बट सबको जो मिलेगा वो उनके प्रोपोर्शनेट परसेंटेज पे मिलेगा। एज पर द रेशियो, और नहीं मिलेगा तो किसी को नहीं मिलेगा।
ओके।
बट कंपनी ऐसा नहीं बोल सकती मैं अपने प्राइवेट इन्वेस्टर को दे दूं पब्लिक को नहीं, ऐसा नहीं होगा।
और सर जैसा आपने बताया कि ओवर द टाइम पीरियड प्राइवेट इक्विटी नहीं रह पाएगा, केवल मतलब प्राइवेट इक्विटी डिसॉल्व हो
ऐसा
जाएगा,
नहीं बोला
केवल
मैंने,
पब्लिक।
ऐसा नहीं, निमेश ध्यान से सुनो, मैंने ऐसा नहीं बोला नहीं रह पाएगा, मैंने बोला प्रैक्टिकली ओवर ए पीरियड ऑफ टाइम प्राइवेट इक्विटी एग्जिट मारना शुरू करता है, मतलब प्राइवेट इक्विटी धीरे धीरे खत्म हो जाएगा। अगर उसको रहना है तो रह सकता है, तो रूल नहीं है विच सेज कि नहीं रह सकता। बट ओवर अ पीरियड ऑफ टाइम प्रैक्टिकली जो कमर्शियल ट्रांजेक्शन होती है उसमें देखो ये सब ट्रांजेक्शन एक कमर्शियल लॉजिक से ड्राइव होती है। प्राइवेट इक्विटी आने का जो लॉजिक है वो यही है कि उसको पब्लिक से पैसा नहीं मिल रहा है। जब उसको पब्लिक से पैसा मिलना शुरू हो जाएगा तो प्राइवेट इक्विटी वाला रुकता नहीं है, चला जाता है। बट अगर उसको रुकना है तो
एग्जिट हो जाएगा।
रुक सकता है, बट वो स्ट्रेटेजिकली मैच नहीं करता है उसको, मतलब इट डजंट मेक टू मच ऑफ
मतलब वही
कमर्शियल।
प्रैक्टिकलिटी में वो चीजें फिजिबल नहीं हो पाती तो धीरे धीरे मूव आउट होता है। वी कैन से दैट।
Yes, that's the reason I'm not trying to teach you or explain you only theory पे, I'm just trying to tell you कि practically थ्योरी में yes है या no है, बट उसके बाद वो प्रैक्टिकली मार्केट में कैसे होता है वो समझना बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट होता है, तभी वो प्रैक्टिकल एक्सपोजर समझ में आएगा आप लोग को।
थैंक यू सर।
Any other questions on this, guys? This is an important slide.
Sir, can you please explain sales and trading part?
Sales is when you're giving an idea, when you're trying to sell an idea or a research to the client, that's called a sales business. Trading it when you're using your own money to invest or to buy and sell some stocks, that's called as trade or proprietary trade.
Okay, sir.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
So no more questions, guys. Last time.
नो सर।
Okay, good. So this closes this. So what we've done so far, we have discussed what is investment bank, we have discussed what is commercial bank. We discussed the commercial bank is bifurcated into corporate and the retail. We discussed what retail bank does, what is private banking or HNI banking. Within the corporate banks, we've discussed what are different types of services that have been made available to the corporates. And the most important piece is what all investment bank can do. So investment bank, the kind of an activities investment bank do is that what is very important for you to understand. And then we also discussed to a certain extent what is private equity and what is public equity. Having said this, yeah, आगे भी है काफी video. ठीक है. I think that's the summary of what we discussed so far. So the next few slides are primarily about these. I will not go through these slides because I've explained this in much more detail. Corporate bank क्या होता है, retail bank क्या होता है, ये सब. So we're done with the first section of this module. Okay, so you can go through this, but we covered the entire thing, and we covered more than what is mentioned on the slide. So it's just, even if you don't go through the slide, that's pretty okay, because if you've understood what I've explained you between yesterday and today's session, those 4, 5, 6 slides is merely a subset of what I've explained earlier. Okay. I'm just conscious of time because the next module है वो 5-10 मिनट में खत्म नहीं होगा. I don't want to start and break this in between. So probably we'll continue in the next class. We'll start this new part in the next class. But before we close last time, any doubt, any questions, queries, कुछ पूछना है, कुछ बताना है, anything that you're struggling, कोई और help चाहिए, कोई कुछ और query, it could be not specific to this topic, but वैसे कुछ chit chat, कुछ पूछना हो, बताना हो, more than happy to take this, use this time. Anything, guys? Anything that's bothering you, कुछ struggle हो रहा हो, कुछ भी.
Hi, sir.
Nice one.
Hello. Sir, what is meant by underwriting?
Underwriting है आगे, but underwriting अगर आपको समझना है तो underwriting क्या होता है? In India में there is a concept called minimum subscription, which is around 90% as of now. So if the company is offering 100 shares, what does minimum subscription mean? That the public has to buy at least 90% of those shares. So if the company is offering 100 shares, 90 should be subscribed by the public. Then only the IPO will be called as a successful IPO. Otherwise, the IPO will stand cancel or has to be withdrawn. So what does underwriting does? Suppose if I'm a new company and I have a fear whether I will be able to sell 90% shares in the market or not. So I will go to somebody and say I don't avail underwriting services. So what underwriter promises, then in case there is a shortfall, that person will buy those shares. So let's just put an example of this. So if I'm offering 100 shares, मेरे 85 पब्लिक ने खरीद लिए, so 5 का शॉर्टेज आ गया, तो अंडरराइटर क्या करेगा, वो 5 शेयर्स खरीद लेगा. सो 85 पब्लिक ने खरीदेंगे, 5 अंडरराइटर ने खरीद लिए, so 85 plus 5 90 हो गए मेरे, and I will meet that requirement of 90 shares and my IPO will pass through. That's called as underwriting. This agreement is called as underwriting agreement. जिसके साथ मैं करता हूँ, that's called as underwriter. ये है आगे काफी डिटेल में. So
Okay, sir.
ठीक है. Anything else, guys? ठीक है. So in case no, we'll continue the next class. So in the interim, please take care and revise कर लीजिएगा. चलिए, thanks.
Hi,
Bye.
Nishant.
Hello.
Yeah, Parul, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to introduce, as today is my first session. Yeah,
Good.
so I'm looking forward, and it was a good session. So thank you so much.
Sure. Welcome. So I think Parul, I've done a couple of sessions. So in case, as you're saying, this is your first session, so try and speak to Damni and the current and try and
Yes,
get
yes.
the recordings for the previous session, so at least you can go through those, and in case any stuff or any part that you don't understand, want to discuss again with me, more than happy to take that.
Okay, sure. Thanks.
Sir, here. Even my last day is a first class, and wanted to cross check how many sessions has been till now happened.
Around 2 sessions, I think two to 3 sessions. I'm not sure on the exact number, but it's pretty much on the lower side.
अच्छा, ठीक है. Hello.
Yeah, Subhash.
Sir, what will be happening in next class? First, my question. Second is, can you brief me about the LMS? Because a lot of confusion here in LMS.
So confusion क्या है LMS में? So LMS में I'm not sure because मेरे को LMS का access नहीं, मतलब मेरा जो screen है, जो मुझे दिखता है, जो आपको दिखता है, बहुत different है. So I will not be able to help you too much. What I can do, आप एक बार दामनी को बोल दो, दामनी को आपकी स्क्रीन का एक्सेस होता है, बिकॉज मुझे ट्रेनर एक्सेस है, मुझे नहीं दिखता आपकी स्क्रीन में क्या आता है, मुझे एक डिफरेंट स्क्रीन दिखती है. ठीक है.
Okay.
So it's better, मैं जो आपको एक्सप्लेन करूंगा वो आप समझ नहीं पाओगे बिकॉज आपकी स्क्रीन में बहुत अलग तरीके से अलग टैब दिखते हैं. ठीक है. So what we can do, आप एक बार, हाँ सुनो एक बार, आप एक बार दामिनी को बोल देना, दामिनी कैन हेल्प यू इफ रिक्वायर्ड. मैं नेक्स्ट क्लास में दामिनी को बोल दूंगा एंड शी कैन जस्ट रन थ्रू you and everybody quickly 5-10 minutes on the LMS. So that's first piece. Your first, that's the second question. The first question was ki
next class
what will do the next in this. So यही continue होगा जो screen पे खुला हुआ है. Next section, career analysis and financial. So I will continue with this module till the time I complete this PPT. This will go for some time.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. Anybody else before we close, guys?
सर सैयद हियर,
Yeah.
क्लास के टाइमिंग सही रहेंगे या कुछ चेंजेस वगैरह रहेंगे?
अभी के लिए यही रहेंगे. What will happen over a period of time will increase the momentum. As I said, it's just a start. तो इसलिए अभी 2 hours की sessions रखे हैं. Slowly I will make it 2.5 hours, then I will make it 3 hours, then it will go up to 4.5 hours types. So leave that. Don't worry about too much about the duration. Focus should be.
No, I'm not worried about duration. I'm worried about the timings. I'm due to some technical error, I'm not able to get this mails from institute. That is what I'm facing now.
So
I was getting sorted out.
You have Damini's number?
No, as of now, no, but I can get it.
You have Karan's. So you have anybody number from the admin department?
I have it. Mr. Santosh is within contact with me. I'll let it sort out.
Okay. Anything else?
Hello.
Yes, Subhash.
सर जब क्लास के टाइम होता है कि उस टाइम आपका जो वॉल्यूम है बहुत स्लोली होता है एंड मेरी इधर से तो 100% वॉल्यूम है, तो आई वांट टू इंक्रीज इन योर साइड वॉल्यूम. इट कैन पॉसिबल?
मेरी साइड से वॉल्यूम फुल है. So let me check with others. So Deepak, Parul और जो लोग हैं, is the same with you? आप मुझे नहीं सुन पाते अच्छे से?
No.
नहीं सर, ईशान सर आपकी वॉइस
Sorry?
निमेश बोल रहा हूँ. क्लियर है सर.
Clear है.
I'm also getting the perfect audibility.
Perfect voice. So
Clear है.
सुभाष आपके एंड पे प्रॉब्लम है, इधर आपके नेटवर्क में प्रॉब्लम है या आपके सेटअप में प्रॉब्लम है. तो वो एक बार चेक कर लेना बिकॉज जब मैं सेशन में लॉग इन करता हूँ तो मैं अपनी आवाज